cute.
Put on a fun shirt.
You put a flowered shirt.
Because it's fun, you know?
Oh, wait. I need water too. Okay.
Are you drinking still or sparkling or something else?
Just regular old water. Still water.
Nice. Is that a NutriBullet like smoothie container?
It depends. Are you judging me?
No, I have that. I've just never drank non like smoothie out of it before.
Fair. Yeah, it is. It's the largest water thing that I have.
It's a volume thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Amazing.
I'm nervous a little bit. I'm just gonna name that.
Just gotta put it out there.
Yeah.
I mean, you look great, and your new desk setup looks adorable.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, it was a little like labor of love because every time I was on Zoom calls, I had my NSYNC poster in the background, and we were launching these PDs that are like open, like nationwide, and I just felt like it maybe wasn't the best look for our company.
Sure. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So where did the NSYNC poster go?
It's rolled up and it's in my closet. I know.
Okay.
I know. It was one of those, like, I'm actually settling into this room. I'm going to be here for 3 more months or so. So I'm going to like get a new comforter and like just decorate like it's my room now.
Like a real adult Rachel room.
I took down all my like high school mums. I don't know if people know what that are, but like these decorative red and silver things from my high school colors. And yeah, I'm like taking them down and they serve their purpose and I'm letting them go. So.
Yep. Love it. Very Marie Kondo.
Exactly.
Very Marie Kondo.
Laura says NSYNC sends what? Sends a great message.
Sends a great message. I mean, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Take me away, Molly.
Wow. Does everyone know what's happening?
Sure. That's a great start. I'm not used to being on the other side of this, but yes. So these are FreeFall Fridays, and every Friday for 10 weeks, I've been interviewing people who have inspired me and who I feel have just like done something a little bit different than what society, views as traditional path. And yeah, just like stories of courage or adventure or, anything like that. So the interesting twist is I'm being interviewed today, which I eventually knew that I wanted to do at some point, but it just so happened that's one of the people that I had booked for this week had a family emergency. So I was like, let's do this. And it's just interesting how much like fear, and which we'll talk about more throughout today's story, but like it just never goes away. And so I've been doing these every single week. And then when it was like, oh, okay, there's this opening, you should do yours. I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll just cancel it, or maybe I'll just like have a little Q&A with some friends, whatever. I was like, Rachel, like sit down and let's just do this. So
yeah.
Always fighting fear.
Love it. Well, I'm happy to be here. My name is Molly. I'm one of Rachel's friends. She's someone who inspires me. So I feel like that's how this all kind of fits together. So rather than have Rachel go through the awkward moment of interviewing herself, she asked me to.
Yes. Uh-oh. It just froze. Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, an Amber Alert came up, not to like take the tone down, but I guess that supersedes anything else that's happening on your phone. As probably it should. Anyways, but we can dive right on in.
Okay, and I'm just gonna name too that I jotted down some notes just because there's so much, and I want to make sure that I like say the things I want to say. So if I look down, that's what's happening. But
and if I look this way, that's me looking at my notes about the questions I'm asking.
So that you're gonna say looking at my phone, just texting my friends.
Yeah, I wish my brain could just hold it all in, but it can't. So here we go. So I feel like a good place to start is what you were doing pre-fall. Like, what was happening before your free fall moment? Where were you, like, physically, emotionally? What were you doing as a job? What was going on?
So I was living in Houston. I was teaching at Yes Prep. I was just finishing up my 5th year teaching. And to be honest, I loved teaching at Yes Prep. It was a very fulfilling job. I loved the students that I worked with and my coworkers for sure. That was one of the best parts. but I also, I mean, I had grown up in Houston. I lived in Houston my whole life, except for when I went to college, which was an hour and a half away from Houston. So there, and I will say too that when I started at that school, I was working with 8th graders, and we were growing out the school each year. And so when they became seniors was the end of that 5th year for me. So it kind of started to feel like a bookend of time. And I've also just noticed in my life that every 4 to 5 years or so, I start getting antsy and I start wanting to know, like, well, what else is out there? I've described to my mom and some of my friends before, like, sometimes I feel like an eagle that is supposed to be like soaring over a canyon, but I feel like a lot of times in my life I feel like an eagle walking around an office building or you know what I mean, just like with these waves. I'm like, I know I'm supposed to be doing something with this, but like I just can't experience it yet. And so I think I was having one of those feelings come up for me, and and so I just wanted to, it just felt like a good time to make a change. I also will say that I was listening, I think I was heading to the rodeo. No, it couldn't have been rodeo because that would have been in the spring, but I was heading somewhere. Oh, I think it was a George Strait concert, actually. Laura's on the call and she might remember this, but on the way there, the song Something More came on by Sugarland, and it just spoke to me. I remember very clearly, I feel like it was in the fall of that year that it just spoke clear to me, like, there's got to be something more. I need a little less hard times. I need a little more bliss. I want to take my chances, take the chance that I might find some, I don't know, it was just like, just take the chance I might find something more, right? And it just spoke to me. I was like, yes, like that's how I feel. So and then specifically, you know, what led me to New York eventually was just, I had always wanted to dance in a Gap commercial. So like, that was a thing that was in my mind.
Wait, that's so specific. I don't think I ever knew that. That's so specific. Specifically a Gap commercial.
Specifically a Gap commercial. When I was in, I guess it was high school, maybe like 9th grade, 10th grade. That's when it like became this thing, and the Gap started putting out all these commercials. I'm almost like very Gappy right now, just like like either this kind of look with like white and khakis, or they would have like the holiday ones with flannel, but like a white background and all these kids and people dancing. Like that was my dream in life.
Do you remember when they did like a West Side Story situation? They
did Cool. I do remember that.
When we did Cool with After Work Theater, I watched that like all the time. Like I wasn't even in Cool, but I was like, I love this dance. This is
exactly. Yes. So that was like something that was in my mind as like just a dream that I had always had. So it was, when I was thinking that I was on this edge of like, I got to do something different, in my mind, New York or LA was just kind of in my head because of the dance scenes there. So I had like spent that year kind of just fooling around online, like what's in LA and what's in New York. Oh, I should say one more thing that was critical during that time too. My school was reading either Outliers or some talent. I can't remember the other book, but I happened to read Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, maybe?
Yes,
But the 10,000 hours rule, that was the first time I was introduced to that. And that was all in play as well. So it was this like, I feel like an eagle. I feel like I'm supposed to go do something. I want to be in a Gap commercial or like a music video or something. And hey, if I did something for 10,000 hours, I could be an expert at it.
Right.
So it kind of was this like, I want to go to a training program. I want to go find some place where I can like really push into dance. It had always just been a hobby, but like, could I study it and do it, you know, for hours and hours a day and get to a place where I could, you know, do something with it. Uh-oh, did another Amber Alert come through?
Tell.
Ah, there you go.
Okay, great.
So that was a lot of the lead up that year. And I think the last thing I'll say before like moving into Jump though was in the research, I looked at stuff happened. I was looking up something in New York, came across Broadway Dance Center. And this was in the fall. They had this thing, Karen's on here. I interviewed her a few weeks ago, but they had the ISVTP program, which was like International Student Visa Training Program. And it was exactly what I wanted, meaning you could go and you paid a certain amount of money, but then you got to train all day long, take dance classes all day long, work with like a coach that would help you, etc. But it was only for international students.
Right.
And I was like devastated. I was like, this is exactly what I want. Like I would go and I'd be a part of a program and I wouldn't feel so scared or alone. And that was in the fall, and then looked around different things, blah, blah, blah. That was always in the back of my mind. But then in April or so, I looked on the website again, just randomly, and they created for the first time ever a training program, which was for residents, for like US residents. So I was like, it's a sign. Like I'm going to apply, I'm going to audition for it. And if I make it, like, that's the thing I want to do. I want to do this program. So.
Wow. So that feels like a good transition. So like, was it, like when you saw that, were you just immediately like, okay, I'm going to apply to it and I'm going to do this thing? Like, what was that thought process like?
Yeah. I mean, there definitely was still like nerves and fear in it, and like kind of a, can I even do this? Like, you know, will they accept me? And then of course all the doubt comes in. Like, I'm not really a dancer. I haven't been dancing for a long time. I'm really just a teacher who also dances. Like all of that starts to flow in, right? But what was kind of cool about it was it felt like one of those things where it's like, I can just go for it. And if they don't accept me, they don't accept me. And then like, that's it. And if they do, then again, maybe it's a sign and like, I should go for it. So it felt, I liked that there was that like door to it. It's like, I'm just going to put that out there. And if they open the door, then fine, I'll step through it. But it wasn't like I just had to go to New York on my own and you know. So I did. I mean, and all of that was scary too. Like I asked someone to like choreograph. I hired someone to like choreograph a dance for me, and then I got one of my friends, Craig Brandenburg, some people on the call know him, to record me in the school auditorium, like on the stage of the school that I taught at, like after hours, to record me so that I could submit this video. And yeah, all of that was like nerve wracking, but I did it, and I got in.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so then you just moved to New York.
Yeah. So I describe my like free fall in two very distinct parts. And even as I was posting this last night, you know, people are like, wait, 10 years? You know, so I want to explain this. But so the first part was I moved to New York. I say I had 2 suitcases basically and like maybe a backpack. And I did very much the like starving artist lifestyle. So I found Craigslist. I found a Craigslisting and stayed in one place for a few months, and then ended up moving further closer to Midtown because I was a waitress, and that meant I was coming home at 2 a.m. And so I wanted a place that was a little bit more populated if I was going to be coming home at those hours. The place that I lived in didn't have heat, which I now know is illegal. Right. But at the time I didn't fully know that. And I should say it had heat, but for some reason it was like, if you turned it on and used it like just a normal human being, the bill came in at $475. And so my roommates who had lived there longer, and I was just the Craigslist one, was like, yeah, we don't touch it.
We just don't touch that.
Right. Wow. And so even like my friends from Houston who came to visit me, Haley's on the call, she was one of them. But like, when they got there, they were like, this is not normal. This is not okay. They ended up buying me a winter coat and like a electric blanket. And I think they were very scared for me. But yeah, I was definitely roughing it. As a waitress, didn't have a ton of money. So I was going to Duane Reade and getting ramen bowls and things like that. But yeah, so that was my like first dip in, you know, experiencing New York. And I was there for the training program, which was I did it for a year. And I will just say, I mean, it was such a hard year. I would say even on top of the like no friends really, in terms of, you know, like the people I was living with, they were Craigslist and whatnot. I was just, I got like shell shock. Is that the right term? I don't know. But like people were good when it comes to dancing. Yes. And that just like blew me away. And I mean, obviously I knew that. I knew I was going to New York City, but people were so good that you just kind of, you like sit, you're like, huh, well, like, what am I doing here? You know? Yes. And I remembered so yeah, that time period was just really challenging for me to like just negotiate, like, who am I in this, where do I fit into this, you know, situation. And I remember specifically I started having this bout of crippling stage fright.
Wow.
And it was weird because when I was in high school and even in college, you know, in high school, I danced every week. I was dancing at a pep rally in front of, you know, 500, 600 students, and at football games and, you know, basketball games. I was dancing every single week in front of people. But here in classes, we would, they would do the whole, like, there's 35 people in the class, and then at the end they do the thing where it's like, okay, let's do it in groups, which chills would just like run through my body. And every single time, not every single time, but like many times when they did that, I knew the dance the whole class. I got it. And then when all these eyeballs were on me, I would just freeze up and forget the movement. So everyone's like whacking their face and like pretending that they're, you know, auditioning or on stage or whatever. And I'm just like, and it was so embarrassing when that would happen. And I remember calling my mom every week and just like, I wasn't trying to call her for like crying or whatever, but it would get to a place where then all of a sudden I was crying in those calls, and I felt bad for her because I just thought, you know, she just sent her daughter off to New York by herself, and
she's
the only thing
she
heard from me was,
you know,
me in tears. So that was all of that was my first year in New York, and it was really rough. And so I ended up, when the program was over, I ended up coming back home to Houston, and in my mind, I was going to come home and like take what I learned from New York and still kind of like dance on the side, or maybe try to do like a minor program at a college or whatever. But it just, I don't know. I felt like when I would try to take dance classes, it wasn't the same. Like, adult classes in Houston meant 14 years old and up. So you're like dancing with a bunch of teenagers who are trying to make it into, you know, HSPVA or whatever. And the teachers weren't taking me seriously. They didn't like remember my names, like how the teachers in New York were, and like coaching me and, you know, helping me get better. So I just felt like I was just really discouraged. And so yeah, that was I just kind of took 3 years. I came back and I was teaching again, and was just kind of licking my wounds and figuring out like what to do with all of these emotions, you know? So yeah, and then like I said, I see my New York experience as 2 parts. So for me, the second part was, you know what else I will say too, because this goes together. Part of what I realized was happening, you know, I guess maybe when I was able to have that step back, back in Houston, was I wasn't dancing when I was in those situations, when I was having this like stage fright and whatnot. I was able to get to the place of mindfulness to realize like, oh, I wasn't dancing. I was trying to prove myself, or I was trying to make it, or, you know, I was trying to make sure that people thought that I belonged there. All of that.
The context is so, like, you created a totally different context for yourself.
Exactly. And I didn't have that awareness while I was there. But yeah, I just realized how far away I was from actually dancing and working on my art or my craft. I was just so focused on like, and especially for me, I put all this pressure on like, I left Houston and made this big move, and so everyone's staring at me, and everyone was like, oh, is she gonna make it, or, you know, whatever. And just all this pressure that I thought that I needed to prove myself to people. And so I bring that up because in the 3 years that I was back in Houston, I feel like I got to a point where I realized like I really loved dancing. I loved the experience that I was having up there in terms of the relationships I was having with the teachers, and growing and learning this new art form, and being challenged and being next to these people who I thought were superstars who could be on Broadway any day. And I realized like I can pick up and uproot my life and go live in another city just because I want to. Like, it doesn't have to be because I think that I'm going to be on Broadway, or because I think I'm going to be a star. It can just be because I like a city. And it energizes me and excites me. And that's the thing that I want to do next in my life. And that was a big like revelation for me, you know?
That really resonates with me. I hear that a lot. So it's nice that you got to that place eventually. And
I feel like that's something that maybe I speak more toward, and I think this applies to everyone, but I do understand that like once you have once you have a spouse and children or whatever, it feels different, but especially to single women, like
Yeah.
I just want them to know that like you can do something just because you want to,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
And you don't have to have like this big reason or this 10-year plan or like how this is going to get me here or there. It can be like, I just really like this thing, so I'm going to go explore it and see where it takes me.
Yeah.
You know?
There is a whole group of people who've been doing that for hundreds and hundreds of years. And that's all I'll say about that. So what brought you back to New York? Or like, how did you get back there?
So in that, you know, just kind of realizing that, you know, I can do whatever I want and kind of shifting my purpose for it being like, I'm going to be on Broadway to like, I'm just going to go see what I can take out of this experience and grow as an artist and, you know, grow as a performer. And it might not be to any end. Like you can just want to be a better artist, even if it doesn't mean you're going to make it to this specific step. And I went back with like a plan. And so I wrote these down because I feel like these were 3 lessons that I learned that really helped me to make this next transition more successful. So one was that I prioritized building community. So even before I got there, I was on Craigslist and different like church websites and whatnot, trying to find roommates, trying to find people that we could build community with. And I was very specific that like, I want to live in a place where like we have dinners together and we hang out and we, you know, like our friends. It's not just because the situation I was in before was like, go to your room. We did not hang out in the living room. We did not do anything.
Transactional only kind of.
Exactly. And I needed to know that in the cold, bitter months of winter that like I had family and that it felt like there was a warm, cozy thing to come home to. So I definitely, I prioritize that. And I take pride that like the past 6 years, I've had some of the best roommates, the best experiences, best friendships out of those roommates. You know, I lived in a house with 6 girls. We shared rooms at one point, like all of that. I've done all of the things, but it was so meaningful to be able to come home to like, it felt like I was coming home, and I could use that word actually. So that was 1. 2, I went there, and that's another thing. I'll just share that like I went there and did not have a job. I just figured like I'm gonna figure it out when I get there, and I knew like worst case scenario I could always wait tables. But I did in those first few weeks before jumping to waiting tables, I tried to find a job where I could prioritize my goals. So the problem with waiting tables was you're exhausted. You're on your feet all day long. You're getting home at 2 a.m. and then to have to wake up and take a 9 a.m. ballet class, like that sounds miserable. So I knew that I could wait tables. I knew that I could make enough money to survive waiting tables, but I wanted to find something different. And I also had to be careful. Like I could have gone and become a teacher maybe, since I did have that background, but I didn't want Monday through Friday, 9 hours a day to be doing the job and then not, you know, getting to really play with the art. So I was very lucky. I found, I was a nanny for the first 3 years that I was there. And she specifically, I chose that one because she asked me to come 3 days a week, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I think I worked 3 days a week, Monday through Wednesday. She had a flexible schedule and she like was with her children Thursday, Friday. So it was perfect for me. So I worked like 10 hours a day. So I like got a lot of money, still got 30 hours of work in those 3 days. And then the other 4 days could really dedicate that to taking classes and, you know, trying out audition for things, being in shows, going to rehearsals, etc. And then I would say the third thing was when I decided to go back again, I decided I was going to go for at least 4 years. And I just kind of told you like how every 4 years or so I like have this urge. And so I wanted to treat going to New York as if I were going to college. And so it was like, I'm not going to quit college after first year. Right. And I know, and I equated the like years as the emotions that I was going to go through. Like I knew obviously year 1 is going to be really hard. And then so, like, you know what the curve is going to look like in 4 years. And so I just made that a part of what my New York experience was like. So it wasn't surprising if, it's going to be hard and you're going to be building friendships that first year and you're going to be like figuring out like what places work for you and what doesn't and how to spend your money and budget your time and all of that. So, you know, I did that and just having that long-term vision made the struggle bearable, if that makes sense. You know? Because if you don't have that, then anything that gets hard, you start questioning yourself and you're like, well, should I be here? Should I just go back home? Should I just, you know, whereas you're like, no, I'm here for 4 years. Oh, this was hard. Okay. Like, how do we make this better so that next year is not as hard? You know, like you can just adapt. So that those were my three things that really helped me to get ready for like, okay, I'm coming back to New York and I have a plan, you know? Yeah. And I've been here, this is the end of 6 years now. So yeah.
Do you think of, once you hit 4 years, are you thinking of it as like another 4-year chunk? Or did you kind of just divorce yourself from that once you graduated?
Yeah, I think somewhere along the way, it just started to feel like, oh, I live in New York now, which I think that's kind of the trick anyway, right? I think of it almost as maybe, you know, if you're setting a goal for yourself for how you want to eat differently, or if you want to do workouts or whatever, like I set this goal, I wanted to work out 20 times a month, or, you know, every month in 2020. And like, now it's not like, I got to get my 20 in. It's just like, oh, I'm going to go do my workout.
It's just my life. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that I, you know, kind of tricked my brain in a sense. I do still have like I have arbitrary, like, oh, I want to have lived 7 years in New York. I want to get the 10-year like stamp, you know,
right. Yeah.
There's not really a stamp, but you know,
just,
I feel like if I say that I lived in New York for 10 years, then I'm a New Yorker or whatever. Like I have those arbitrary things in my mind now. Yeah. But now it's just kind of like, this is the city that I live in. And, you know, if it's time to move at some point, then like, that's just a part of life. Yeah. I don't. Yeah.
So I have a clarifying question, which is, what do you consider your free fall? Do you consider it when you went for BDC, or when you came back, or both, or neither? What do you consider your free fall?
So many. Well, to be honest, so many free falls. I would say the one that I think kicked everything off was the first move to New York, because that was definitely, for having lived in Houston and lived in Texas my whole life, to just go out there without a job or a plan or anything really. I mean, the plan was BDC, but still, that felt like crazy to me. And I think maybe this transitions into what I'm sure we're gonna talk about next, but like, I think that first free fall for me was the beginning of many free falls, because once you do something like that and you challenge yourself in that way, then it's like, oh, okay, well, I did that, and it was hard, and like I said, it was rough or whatever, but like I survived. So what else could I possibly do? Or even better, like, what else am I holding myself back from? I feel like that starts to be a question that comes up more frequently. So I think that was definitely the first official free fall. But I mean, from that, then of course there's just coming back again. I in the time that I've been here, the second time, I found After Work Theater. So that was huge for me. After Work Theater is just like a group of adults who put on musical theater shows. And so that created all of these opportunities for mini free falls of like my first time being in a full stage musical, my first time singing a solo by myself, my first time being a stage manager. I didn't even know what that was 6 years ago. And that was, I don't know if you knew this, but I stage managed at After Work Theater, but I also was like a stagehand at the New York Musical Festival, NYMF.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, like all these random opportunities, you know, opened up. And then of course, I choreographed and directed an entire show, which I never, ever, ever thought that I would be able to do that. But again, it was like the first free fall just kind of primed me for like, why can you not do that? Like, why do you think you can't do it? You know? And so, and then I think I would say that even it then goes to expand beyond the arts, because when I transitioned out of, for me, I see it as transitioning out of education and started doing career coaching, like that was a big shift for me. And that felt like another free fall or another leap. And then of course, Devin's on the call, but she was part of the inspiration for going and living in Paris for a month.
I was going to say, that's like a huge, you know, a huge leap that you made.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that those go hand in hand, because it's like, it seems really scary. I mean, it was in the beginning, like planning or whatnot, but the elements are the same. Like, I'm going to go to this foreign place that I don't know a lot about. Like, put some things in place maybe to have community. So like I reached out to Devin and I knew Devin was doing her like soul searching thing and I wanted to too. So it wasn't that I thought I was going to like spend every day with her. I think we both wanted to like, you know, experience independence or whatnot, but to just know that she was there. And like, we did have a time where we went and, you know, got, hung out, you know, for a day and
yeah.
And I also reached out to other people who I was like, who else do I know who might be in Paris? And like, just to have those things planted, it's the same thing because I learned like community is important, right? So you can start to put some of those things in place from previous free falls to help you tackle new ones, you know?
Yeah. I love that so much. So what, I mean, we've kind of, I feel like we've talked around this, but maybe just to ask you like a little bit more point blank, what have been the benefits of taking the free falls that you've taken? If that makes sense. Like what do you feel, like what do you take away from that? What are things that you learn? It seems like one big thing is like community is really important to you, and that's like a rock you need to create wherever you're going. But like what other things along those lines?
I think I would say the biggest thing is like I have started to learn, and it's still a process, but how to redefine success.
Yeah.
So I think so much of why I crashed and burned the first year was because success to me was I needed to like make it on Broadway, or I needed to audition for a cruise ship and get booked, or I needed to do something that like then people back home were going to be proud of me and I could feel like I succeeded.
Yes.
And I think that, I mean, and I still wear that sometimes, and I have to like do work to shed that. Because even as I was preparing for this call, and part of what was making me nervous was like, well, I don't really have a free fall because like I haven't been successful. Like that's literally what I've been telling myself. And it's so ridiculous. But then as I was putting together the pictures to like, you know, promote this and stuff this week, which I feel like a lot of you've probably seen because you're here, I became I was proud of myself, if that makes sense. So I'm like seeing these pictures and I was like, oh my gosh, I did do that show. Or I remember I did sing by myself and I was so scared of having that solo, but I did it. Or, you know, I remember I was teaching this to that was the very first day, launch day, and I was the director and I had to teach to this room full of, you know, 100 people or however many or whatever. And I was proud again. And I have had to, I feel like that's one of the benefits is that I've learned that like success has to come from me, right? It has to be defined by and grounded and rooted in me. And if I'm spending my life making success be what, you know, other people are telling me is success, I'm just gonna be miserable. I'm gonna be chasing their dreams, not mine, you know? And so I think that's been the biggest thing for me is just to like be able to look back in these 10 years and in one sense you have this feeling like, oh, I have nothing to show for it. But in the other sense, like as like I said, looking through all this pictures, I'm like, I have so much to show, so much growth. I've been working on my craft. I've been like developing not only artistically, but just like as a human and growing and shedding layers of fear and, you know, layers of like society telling me what I can and cannot do and all like that's, you know, you can't put money on that. You know? So, I think that's what I'd say some of the like kind of just biggest benefits.
And we talked about fear like a little bit, but like what fears, like I mean I think we talked a lot about like fears that you felt, especially like surrounding like creature comfort and, you know, feeling safe, not just like safe, but like safe, as you were, you know, moving to New York and things like that. But like, what of those fears still stick with you? And is there anything, are there fears that you maybe, even if you don't want to, that you still are feeling in your life that have like stuck with you even throughout this process?
I think honestly, and this kind of ties to I know the questions because I sent them to Molly, so I'm gonna like merge these together. So I'm just giving out, but like this kind of leads to like the guiding principle or like
Yeah,
how I
yeah.
approach life or whatever. So for me, fear, I have come to find, is the like central thing that I am mining for at all times in my life, because I've learned the degree to which I have in the past and continue to, but like, you know, significantly in the past, let fear dictate my life. And so in any situation, I'm constantly trying to evaluate, like, if I say like, oh, I don't want to do that, it's like, you know how they have the like ask why 5 times type thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of that, but for me doing it in a sense for fear. So if I say like, oh, if my initial reaction is like, ooh, I don't want to do that, and I can feel it, I feel it in my gut, I feel queasy sometimes, especially if it's something that like I'm kind of excited about, but like I just don't think I can do it.
Yes.
It's, to me, that's like okay, let's dig a little deeper, what's going on there.
Yeah.
And I think about times when Amanda has said like, hey Rachel, would you want to like direct the show, or hey Rachel, would you want to lead these exercise classes, or you know, things like, Amanda's really really good at that.
She is.
But even like even starting this FreeFall project and these videos and stuff like that, it's the same feeling every time. I get this like gut queasy feeling where I feel a little nervous, a little fear. My initial reaction is to want to be like, yeah, no. And then I have to mine for it and say, why no? And what normally comes up, if I dig deep enough, it's always associated with people and approval. And that like makes me so sad. That's what actually makes me nauseous. That's what makes me like want to fight so hard, is that I don't want my life to be dictated by like, oh, well, people think this about me, or, you know, what happened. And because usually the biggest thing is, well, what happens if I fail? Yeah, people are going to look at me. People are going to laugh at me. People are going to think, well, why did you think you could do that? Like that is what the fear always is. Yeah. It's sometimes, it's very few times, it's like money or a physical fear or danger. Like I would say 2 to 3% of the time. 97% of the time, if I'm afraid of doing something, it's because I'm afraid that I'm going to fail, and I'm afraid of what people will then think about me or say about me if I fail. And so then I think what I've become better at is walking myself through that. Like, okay, that's true. Like I might start this FreeFall project thing and no one will show up and no one will listen to it. And, you know, but like, okay, that like, so what, you know? And and I think that I need to, it then makes me do a gut check on, am I doing something because I'm trying to impress people? Or am I doing something because I think that there's value inherently in the thing that I'm doing, and I want to, you know, manifest that, or I want to like bring life or light to that, you know? Yeah. So that's what I see. Like I think about this FreeFall project, and I'm like, it's rough right now. I'll be transparent about it. Like it's hard because it's like sometimes the videos are long, and I know that Instagram's not necessarily a place where people want to watch something for an hour. So then I've been working on the weekends. I'm like cutting the videos and trying to make some 2-3 minute snippets. But to me, I see value in this, and I've been inspired by people, and I've been inspired by even the 2 to 3 minute little snippets that I make of, and I'm like, I got to get this out into the world, and I haven't quite figured out the right way yet, but I'm gonna keep playing with it until, you know, I find the right medium. So that's me, and that's kind of the principle I do, is like working through fear, mining for fear. Okay, I'm just afraid that people are gonna laugh at me because I tried this thing and it didn't work. Push that aside. Okay, let's get to work, you know?
Yeah. That's amazing. Like I think that just really resonates with me. Also the feeling of like, also just like knowing physically what happens to your body when you're approaching something like that like identifying the pit in your stomach or the emotion or whatever. That really resonates. For me, it's usually like I will be on the verge of tears if I know it's like a big thing. Like if like admitting that thing to one of my people, like it's like, it is like a, you know, obviously the mind and the body are all very connected. So it's like really being in tune with your body and saying, okay, hold on, what's going on here? Like, let's like actually get at the root of that. I think is such a smart way of going about it. Any other guiding principles or inspirations that you have now like incorporated into your life?
I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone on this call already knows this because it's like all that I ever talk about, but I just finished reading Untamed this summer, and so I'm just living my life like I'm a cheetah. It's unleashed.
An eagle and a cheetah.
An eagle and a cheetah, basically.
A cheagle.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I'm definitely using that. I am a cheagle now.
I love it.
But yeah, just like all the principles of, I just feel like I'm spending a lot of time trying to dismantle all of the things, all of the stories and narratives that I've built up that they're now not even, they're like encyclopedias and you know what I mean, like dictionaries and Bibles, and I need to like rip them apart because they're just so, they're so confining and they're so like restrictive, and I've realized to the degree of which my personality and my experiences and like who I've become has been dictated by that as well. So not just fear, but also these, you know, different norms of society and whatnot. And so, yeah, I just feel like I'm aggressively trying to dismantle that, move things aside, like break through and just figure out like, who am I? Glennon Doyle talks about like her knowing. And so just sitting and trying to like sink into your knowing and stop thinking that like everyone else has more experience and more knowledge about me and what I should do with my life than me. So yeah, just really trying to sink into that and trust me for a little bit, like bet on me, you know? So that's where I am.
Yeah, I love that. And just like a very quick side note, when you were talking about like living untamed, I think about even like recently, Rachel and I were at the same virtual get together and we had not really talked one-on-one in a while. And I sent her this text afterwards that I wrote like 87 times because I was like, I don't want it to seem too forward, but the text was basically just like, I miss you and would love to talk to you more, like if you have time to do that. And thinking about it afterwards, it made me sad because I was like, what was I worried about? Like who's saying, like, no one needs to dictate the way that I like express a happy feeling to somebody else. Do you know what I mean? So it's, I think that it's like on all different levels. I think that like we can really be examining the way that we express those things. So
exactly. And I mean, to me, that's like just another example where it's like, let me mine for this, because I would almost maybe not even write the text. And then I'm like, the only reason I wouldn't write this is because I'm scared that she's going to like think XYZ about me.
Right.
Girl, write the text. You know what I mean?
Right. So yeah. So what's next for Rachel Nicole Arthur of the FreeFall Project?
I mean, quarantine has proven a very creative and fruitful time for me, which I know, and I say that, you know, I say that partially with guilt because I know it has not been that for many other people. But I guess, you know, it is what it is, and everyone has different seasons and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, so I'm working on FreeFall Project. These are just like passion projects for me and labors of love, in the sense that like I kind of taking that same principle of, I don't have to try to make it on Broadway. This doesn't have to be a huge business that like supports my life. It can just be that I have this idea and I want to put it out into the world. So that's kind of where I am. I'm trying to play around with FreeFall Project and figure out different mediums to like make it the most accessible for people. I'm working on this like Life by Design workshop, which is starting October 6th. And it's just, again, this place of like, I have all these ideas for how to like, or I've learned all these lessons about how to goal set and how to like set a vision for your life and goal set and create habits and play with mindsets, you know, in a way so that you can be more successful and make sure that you have mindsets that are serving you and serving you towards the goals that you have in mind. And so, yeah, wanting to like put that into, codify it in some way and share that with other people. So I'm just taking a stab at it, and I'm going to be joining with 9 other girls soon for 6 weeks, and we're going to do that Life by Design workshop. And then, I don't know, I've been playing around in my mind. This has not started yet, but I really want to do something with like plant-based nutrition or just nutrition in general and healthy lifestyle. And again, I think all of it always comes back to mindsets and trying to like get out of diet culture, but still figure out how to find the balance of like wanting to feel healthy and wanting to feel good about yourself every day. So I don't know, it might be like a blog or some videos or something, who knows, but just kind of playing with like, oh, what do I want to do? Great, let's do it, you know, and just giving myself the freedom to do it.
Yeah. That's awesome. All from the confines of your childhood bedroom.
Yes, just me and my rolled up in sync poster.
Well, great. Yeah. Anything else that we didn't get to that you want any notes you'd like to read us?
I think we crushed it all. So, I mean, unless if anyone had any question or anything, give like 30 seconds for that. But yeah, I think we got through it all. Molly, you were a great host.
Oh my God, thank you so much. Maybe this is my next career move.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I thought.
Do you have what number is this of the 10?
This is number 6.
Okay.
So we have four more people lined up. I can say I don't know the exact order because I don't have it with me, but I know if Devin is still on the call, she is going to be sharing her FreeFall and the script that she is writing for her screenplay that she's writing. I have Katie, who moved to Paris for like a semester and went to Le Cordon Bleu and was a pastry chef. Wow. So that we're going to talk about that. And then my friend Amanda, she is this. It's like completely different pivot, but like she has been she was a foster mom and now has adopted 2 boys. And I just love watching her life and how she navigates motherhood and like she just basically runs like a little camp with her and her children and her friends and whatnot. And then I have Ro is going to close us out. And Ro, this one's funny because Ro, we went to college together and we have not like we're not friends that like talk on the phone or anything like that. We see each other's lives on Instagram. And I think of Ro as like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Because she's always in a different city in these fabulous hotels. Like and sometimes hotels, but sometimes she's like just living in another city. And at one point she was shopping around to find a new city. So she was going to like live in LA for a couple months and then she was going to try another place for a couple months until she decided where she would live. And so I was like, we got to talk. I just want to hear what's going on in your life.
Yeah, we got to get to the bottom of that here. I definitely want to tune in for that one.
Yeah. So yeah.
Cool. Great. Wow.
Thanks guys. Thank you guys so much for joining. And yeah, we'll be back next week and I'll keep posting and letting you know who's coming up next.
Cool. So. Great. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.